इकबाल का एक बहुत मशहूर शेर है, एक ही सफ में खड़े हो गए महमूद व अयाज, न कोई बंदा रहा और न कोई बंदा नवाज। उसमें किसी ने तरमीम ये की है, क्योंकि लफ्ज़ टेररिज्म का तस्करा आ गया, तरमीम किसी ने ये की है कि एक ही सफ में खड़े हो गए महमूद व अयाज, दूसरी सफ में खड़ा हो गया खुदकश बमबाज। अब हुआ क्या तुम्हें बतलाएं जो भैया इकबाल, न कोई बंदा रहा और न कोई बंदा नवाज। तो it is a serious subject. I shall try to give you a backdrop so that you have, without a backdrop, it is not possible to understand anything. The entertain conjecture of a time when two superpowers are confronting each other and leaving us in peace, which was ironically called the balance of terror. Mutually assured destruction, Soviet Union, America and the West. How to ward off the possibility of accidents, the possibility of a war which would destroy all of us. They got involved in a thing called detente. Detente was, let us have strategic talks that these accidents are minimized. That detente, somehow in the 70s, when I was at Princeton University, so I saw firsthand that detente was very negative for the Americans. The Soviets were advancing. So much so that stand-up comedians in Washington, D.C. used to have a joke. And the joke was that detente is like a wife-swapping party where you go with your wife and come back alone. So in other words, detente was going badly for the Americans. Why? Quickly I'll give you the background. The Portuguese had withdrawn from Africa suddenly in the mid-70s, and they found that Angola and Mozambique, both these countries had communist parties, and they came to power. In Nicaragua, the Sandinistas were communists, and they came to power. In Ethiopia, Mengistu remained a very powerful dictator, communist. Enrico Berlinguer, all of you Google and see Berlinguer's funeral in the 80s. You see it, Berlinguer, Berlinguer. You would then realize George Marchais in France, Carrillo in Spain. People like Kissinger were talking about a Marxist Western Europe in 15 years. Now what had they realized? They realized that everywhere there were communist parties. They had not taken account that while the Soviets, while the colonial powers withdrew, there were against them a series of communist parties which had come to power. They suddenly looked around and they found our region. Shah in Iran, an American supporter totally, 100%. Dawood in Afghanistan, at that Ziaul Haq, in Pakistan, and Morarji Desai in India, and J.R. Jayawardene in Sri Lanka. So this region was secure for the Americans, and they said, my God, what we've got to do is to get rid of the communist parties fast, because see what has happened in Africa. So the SAVAK, which was, along with the Mossad, the big intelligence agency of the Shah of Iran, that was mobilized to go and remove the communists from around the Afghan regime. Dawood, the president, was surrounded by communists. So a plan was hatched that we shall go and implant, remove these people, kill them, coup. This news got leaked. It always happens. The Americans, you will find, things get leaked. Leaked a man called Mir Akbar Khaybar, leader of Khalq trade union. Khalq was the CPM of Afghanistan, was killed by accident, and it was showed that something was afoot. This alerted the left. They immediately went in and killed Dawood and the entire right. And by what the Americans wanted, exactly the opposite had happened. Khalq and Parcham, which is the CPI and the CPM, came to power in Kabul under the prime ministership of Noor Muhammad Taraki. My God, the Shah, they then said, let us encourage the mullahs in Iran. Ayatollah Khomeini was in France. He was brought, you have pictures, it was all peacefully done. He was brought all the way to Tehran. It was fanned. The Iranian revolution was created. The idea was that this revolution would finish off two communist parties of Iran. One was Tudeh, and the other was Mujahideen Khalq. What will happen is that as revolution comes, these parties would come up from underground, and we'd identify them and finish them. That is what happened. When the communist parties came to power in Afghanistan, that paved the way for the Soviet Union to enter Afghanistan in 1979. 79, they enter Afghanistan. Now, my God, in the vortex of global, of a strategically sensitive area like Afghanistan was in Soviet hands. So somehow they have to be removed. Three powers got together. One of them, United States of America. Second, Saudi Arabia. Third, Ziaul Haq. All three had different aims. Am I coming across to you? Is it double Dutch? Are you following my drift? These three, the Americans wanted the Soviets out of Afghanistan. The Saudis wanted to create a kind of Islam in Afghanistan, which is full of Sufis, Salahs, and so on. They wanted to create a kind of Islam which would be a bulwark next door, contiguous to Iran, where the Shia Ayatollah's revolution had come. That was the Saudi interest. Ziaul Haq thought that he would have all these seminaries from along Jalalabad to right through southern Afghanistan and the Pakistan border. He wanted to tear Pakistan away from the subcontinental Islam. What you call composite culture was a big problem with him. He wanted to Arabize. We will be different from us. So he wanted to Arabize Pakistani Islam. This was the project. The Americans gave them Stinger missiles. The Stinger missiles got very cleverly done by the Mujahideen who had been trained. in hundreds and hundreds of seminaries by Pakistanis. These were madrasas all along the borders. And lo and behold, in 1989, the Soviet Union left. It vanished. It left Afghanistan. So the Mujahideen, created by the Americans and the Saudis and the Pakistanis, had done their job. So what do we know now? That by creating an Islamic, militant Islam, manufacturing it artificially, like in a hatchery, they had been able to evict Soviet Union. Keep this at the back of your mind. Keep this at the, having achieved this, the Americans withdrew. People asked Zbigniew Brzezinski, who was a great strategic thinker in Washington, what have you gone and done? You've created this problem of militancy in Islam. He said, look, we were out to finish the Soviet Union. We were not worried about some stirred up Muslims. This is what he said. Now those stirred up Muslims is what we are facing today. The Americans left. These Mujahideen were without any work. You had very lethal, high voltage Islam had been trained, and there was no work for them. So some came into Kashmir, some went to Cairo, Egypt, some went to Algeria. It's a long story. This is how all Soviet Union in 1989, they left Afghanistan. In 89, if you remember, the Berlin Wall fell. In 1990, hey presto, the Soviet Union came down like melting ice cream. And who was the happiest? The Mujahideen. Single-handedly, a handful of Islamists had done it. That's what they believed. And Soviet Union came down. When the Soviet Union came down, what happened is, one system had won, the other system had lost. Now the victorious system was going to put its stamp on its victory. And what was it going to do? Came in the form of Operation Desert Storm. What was Operation Desert Storm? They created a situation in Iraq, which I shall not detail, I won't go into because I am looking at that monitor, time is running out. And they came with huge military might. Now, how am I qualified to talk to you about it? Because I was there in Iraq for that action. Something, if you remember what I'm telling you now, is that is where the Bij, the Brahma of terrorism began. On the terrace of Al Rashid Hotel sat my friend Peter Arnett of the CNN. I was on the terrace of Al Mansour Hotel. The war began. The most terrible kind of, my God, the sounds I hear, one would, if I were not an adult and I was a younger person, I would have nightmares to this day. It is an unbelievable demonstration of military power as I could see from my hotel room and the terrace. All of this, now remember this, tawajjuh chahunga aapki. All of this created a situation where not you, but your parents, if you ask them, they saw for the first time in human history a war live on their television sets. A triumphant system had pulverized an Islamic state. By one show, by one program, by one episode, the West had transformed the globe into two distinct sets of audiences, antipathetic, inimical to each other. One, the West, which said we had won. The other, the Muslims, they had been humiliated yet again. they had been debased again, their houses destroyed, their women running helter-skelter, all of this on live television. And this was followed up again by the Intifada. In 1992 came the Bosnian War. Every day the Muslim world saw the brutalization of Bosnian Muslims on live television. Every day they saw the Intifada. Every day. Then came 9/11. 9/11 was fireworks in Afghanistan. 9/11 led to retaliation, and retaliation, 9/11 means September 11, 2001. And October 7th began the big action in Afghanistan, and people like Valero, he was a correspondent of the Fox News, he produced a gun. And he said, on live television, he said, I am going to look for Osama. If I find him, I'm going to shoot him. That was supposed to be television. Now what ये इश्तियाल जो पैदा किया जा रहा था टेलीविजन से, और ये ज़माना वो है सोवियत यूनियन का गिरना, is exactly coincides with our liberalization. 1991. 1991 में एक टेलीविजन चैनल था, दूरदर्शन. फिर 92, 1994 में आपके ये मल्टीपल चैनल्स आना शुरू हो गए. ग्लोबलाइजेशन आ गया था, एक सिस्टम हार गया था, दूसरा जीत गया था. ये बिल्कुल कॉपी कैट जर्नलिज्म बनी, और मीडिया ने जो बिल्कुल कोइंसाइड उसकी नकल की. 7 तारीख को अफगानिस्तान पे अटैक हुआ, 7 तारीख को नरेंद्र मोदी पहुंचे. ये मैं कोई कंस्पिरेसी थियरी नहीं, बल्कि कोइंसिडेंस है ये कि एग्जैक्टली ऑन द 7th Narendra Modi was in Ahmedabad for the first time. He was a member of No House, and then he took over as chief minister. He fought the election later. And when that election was going to be turned a little bit against them, then happened 2002, and it has never stopped. Our media and the Western media have been complicit in creating this. There's been no caution. I find the monitor is out. I have run out of time. I hope I have given you a picture of how this media and the events in world affairs created this this bhoot of Islamic terror globally and, of course, in India. Thank you very much.